sponsor, Manscaped. Have you tried the new equipment that's been sent?
I'm afraid because it says weed whacker. I'm scared.
Maven, Manscaped. What are you thinking about Manscaped, dude?
Love it.
What do you use it for?
Necessity. What don't I use it for? Put it this way. The only hair I have on my entire body is these eyebrows.
Yeah.
That you see. These caterpillars racing to the middle of my nose. That's it.
That is it.
That's all I have. And that's all I want.
That's the
Manscaped is a must.
We were talking before the show. There's nothing worse than just hair.
Yeah.
Right? Hair on a woman, hair on a man. It's just bad. Absolutely.
And it's the one thing that the older I get, it starts growing more in unwanted areas.
Absolutely.
I hate it.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Just going to go out there.
Oh, boy.
Go for it.
You're doing a deed.
Yes.
Again, I don't want you to have to admit this because we, as men, we try not to admit this. But if you're going to go do the deed on a woman, would you rather have her be hairless or a little hair, racing stripe, or full retro bush?
Racing stripe. Retro bush is out.
Yes, thank you.
Retro bush is out.
Yeah.
I don't mind a small, well-manicured landing strip. Every now and then, if it's completely, and I'm talking like baby's ass bald, then I start. Where is that pedophilia line? I don't want to wander into that.
That's very interesting. I never thought about that. You're a smart dude. Holy shit.
So if the landing strip is clean enough for the plane to go in smoothly, you're cool with that?
If the landing strip has, like I said, well manicured, you can see both sides. It's not
like blinking lights on both sides of that.
I don't want, I don't want the shrubbery going off into unwanted areas on that as well.
Gotcha. Oh, look what you found. Ooh.
I got to be all honest though. Hey, the older I get though, I don't think I can be as I found it.
Have you ever gone down there and she slowly brings down the underwear? Then
what is it?
Retro.
Absolutely.
You're like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm 46.
Like it pops out?
Do you walk out or what do you do?
No, I muster through. I muster up the courage to get
He's
through.
a trooper. Yeah. He's a trooper. Got to give him an A.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, I couldn't say. Well, if you have the same beliefs as Maven, does Manscaped could help you?
Absolutely.
The weed whacker.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I may have to, go in a room, close the door, and hang out with the weed whacker for a little while.
Yeah, I think you're a retro guy, aren't you?
I like 70s adult films, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
but with that, we're going to take a quick
Batman.
commercial break, and we'll be back with this wrestling icon, Maven. Yo, Jimmy.
Yo.
I got a little beef.
A beef?
A little beef.
Roast beef? Roast beef?
Not roast beef, but beef. You got to talk to Bart, man, because we're getting hit with copyrights on all your music now. It's getting crazy.
I thought that you guys communicated. What's wrong with you?
You know, I told him it's really not a big deal, but now it's like every video. I'm like, oh, man.
I have no idea why that's – I have no idea. You know what? We're going to have a conference call, Mikey.
Conference.
We got to figure it out. We got to figure it out because you certainly have permission for me and Bart to use the stuff on the show. Let's be real here. So I don't know.
I know. It's just, the way things – what do you think of my new – well, not my new shades. I can't find my regular show glasses, so I got to use these, right? Because – but then
you look
a little flyish, right?
Yeah.
Little fly.
Like Goldblum flyish?
Yeah, like fly, yeah.
Wow. I don't know, man. I think they look okay. But then again, I've got my shades on and I can't see much. So I guess when I watch the replay, I'll figure out if you look like a bug or not.
So, very good.
Fair enough.
You know what I was going to say to you, man? I could tell you today's guest we're both very excited for, obviously. We're going old school, right? Because we schedules for Thursday, and we know the mess that has happened. I want to tell everybody, though, that Monte and Pharaoh will be joining Stripe TV. We're finishing up the paperwork now.
Yes,
so
sir.
We'll be on the streaming network Stripe, and obviously on the audio end, we're being distributed by Believe. So some good things are happening, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. Yes,
maybe this could Michael Sequella. You remember that guy? A fraudster, according to the Arizona Corporate Commission. The state regulatory agency has ordered Sequella to be and his affiliated company, Best Images ILLC, and Cactus Blue Entertainment to pay $915,000 and restitution and administration fee of $100,000. Sequella and his two companies under the control were ordered to permanently cease and desist from violating the State Securities Act. The order was approved November 6th. Jimmy.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know who Mike Sequella is, maybe you would like to share that with the crowd and the audience.
Well, Mike Sequella was a guy that we had on the show as a guest because at the time we took him at face value that he was an upstanding citizen who was a filmmaker. We had a very nice interview with him. Everything seemed to go well. Later on, he came to the show with an offer, I guess, I'll paraphrase, kind of as a middleman between us and Jim Beam. And, there were contracts involved and stuff, and things were signed and agreed to. He was I think the end number was $500,000 over the course of the deal with 120 coming to Monte and the Pharaoh of the 500. We never saw a dime. He postponed and ran us around the bush over and over and over and over again. We started doing background checks and stuff because, we like to believe that people we could take at face value, but unfortunately, he had a history, and he's a fraud. He injured a lot of people in this. This was a bad, effect of all of this that came from this because he's a crook. And, the courts have said so, and they've said so again. They said so in the past, and they've said so again. I think the word violated, as far as my feelings are, and I'm sure your feelings are, is an understatement when it comes to this, because this was absolute thievery from a scumbag. And that's my take on whatever his name is, because I'm already pushing it out of my mind because I can't harbor on it too much right now. But we may not be done fighting here, Mikey.
No, not at all. And I mean,
right.
we went to Jim Beam with our issues, right? Because we did service them, right? We did. We showed their commercial for over a year.
Faithfully every week.
And again, that commercial was given to us way before it came even to pro wrestling. The first time that showed up was a month after we were showing that opening commercial.
Right.
And, again, I don't know how much money they made from us showing it and everybody else showing it. But the situation is we fulfilled our contract, right?
Right.
We were required to do a certain amount of live shows and required to hand over specific shows that we requested, that Jim Beam requested. They had specific shows. There's a list. And I don't remember seeing that list, Jimmy. It was so long ago at this point,
Right.
So,
not to mention his bogus intuitive network.
Well, again, bogus.
More bogus.
Let me put it this way: if he got paid, right?
I know.
So there had to be something behind it. I mean, was it purely because of our show?
Well, you saw that.
You saw
you saw what he was spending his profits on.
Oh yeah,
himself.
Well, I do know from watching that there is a documentary on YouTube, unfortunately, and we're on it and not knowing we're on it, right?
Okay.
Unbelievable. Not knowing we're on it, right? And he was taking the funds from Jim Beam and paying off some of his other financial or issues and liens that he had on himself, because obviously he did go to jail, right, at some point for security fraud, securities fraud. I was well aware of that when we made the agreement with him, because it, at my thought of it is, hey, we're really not investing anything in this. What have we got to lose? But once things really, that's when we originally started with him. But once Jim Beam came, the show did take some significant damages, right? Because we invested in a lot of stuff anticipating that we were going to get this money. And I can even remember having a conversation with the guy at some point. I go, if you're going to F me, or if you're going to fuck me, tell me now and we'll be fine, right? Just let me move on.
Gave him many opportunities to stop stringing us along, but the real thing that was happening as he was stringing us along is he was collecting.
It's fucked up, dude.
It is. It's evil. It's evil, and that's what that guy is. He's evil. Unfortunately, there's plenty of them out there, though. Many people were victimized too. That should be mentioned. I mean, of course, yes, we've been victimized, but many people were victimized by his lying and deceiving and taking other people's hard-earned money. So, very poor.
You got to hold on 1 second, big guy.
Hold on, like the song from Triumph.
Well, only I.
Yeah.
Would lose internet connection. Hold on 1 second. So everybody knows, so everybody's well aware that we shoot out of a studio, right? And in this studio, we have a producer.
Right.
So our producer, Abe, he's friggin' awesome.
Yeah, he's the best.
Abe, he couldn't do the show anymore on Thursdays. So we pay a studio, and guys, we're going to get to our guest, and I know she must be anxious, and we're very excited for her. We have a lot to talk about, so she better be ready for the long haul with us.
I wonder if I am, but go ahead.
So we got this new producer, and Barbara was supposed to be on like 2 weeks ago, and this producer jacked this whole thing up. And then when
I was in town,
you were in town, which couldn't even have been worse, right? I mean, talk about getting worse.
That was my that's my first impression of the new place.
Yeah, right. And then we had Mitch Seinfeld in, and she friggin' videotaped the back of his head the whole time. So yeah, I tried to be nice about it, whatever. You know what I mean? But then
you were nice.
I was listen, you old me would not have been very happy, right?
You were very civil. I was proud of you.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. That means
I know that means the world to you, of course.
It does mean the world to me, because I'm trying to be a better human being, right?
Well, you were that night. Let's put it that way.
Anyway, Barbara wasted almost 2 hours of her night, whatever it was, which
it was a while.
And I got to give her a lot of credit. If I was her, I would have been pretty pissed off, and I wouldn't have blamed her one iota. Okay,
right. Agreed.
But the funny thing I could say before we bring Barbara on, I could see you're at your best Jimmy with you. You're very behaved around her, so you must have a ton of respect for this lady.
Oh, I love Barbara. Barbara's a great person. I mean, I only got to see her for a few days at the gathering, but she left quite the impression. She's a class act. She's very intelligent. She's very funny. And best of all, she gets our sense of humor. I was like, wow.
Well, look who's here. It's Barbara. How are you, Barbara? Good to see you.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, we're lovely. How are you?
I'm glad to be here. You think that I should put some sunglasses on too?
I think you need to join the fray.
All have sunglasses.
That's it.
Great.
That's the gimmick. Got to wear the gimmick.
We just became ZZ Top. Excellent. Go ahead.
Well, you both had sunglasses, so I was like, well, I got to go wear some sunglasses too. So we're all,
Yeah, we're cohesive. We're in synchronicity.
So
there we go.
Before we get going, I'm going to read one news item, and then it's all about Barbara, her family, and obviously her very famous husband. I'm going to read this to you guys.
Oh, no.
Peter raises tips reward to $16,000 for man who dragged 2 dogs behind his car in Georgia.
People from the Ethical Treatment of Animals, that's PETA, is helping Georgia officials identify the man who dragged 2 dogs tied to the back of the car nearly 2 months ago, killing one of them. The animal rights organization offered $10,000 to whoever has the information that leads the suspect to arrest, raising the total to $16,000. Surveillance footage, which you see right here on screen, captured the suspect who dragged 2 animals roadside. So may I ask you both, obviously a terrible story, but what is your feelings? I'll start with you, Barbara, about speciesism in the United States of America at this point, and maybe the world.
How do you mean by that?
So, we talk about racism, right? We talk about, I don't know, what's the other word, Jimmy? Not for, anti-Semitism, right? There's so many different things. Speciesism is when we treat anything but human beings worse than human beings.
There's no way to tolerate people that abuse their animals or abuse people or anything, any animal, anything at all that people are abusing. And especially what you showed me, I've got my little dog sitting next to me and I have one in the other room. You show me that with the 2 little dogs and it just breaks my heart. And I don't know what's happening with everything that's going on now. Some of the things are horrific, what you hear, especially what people are doing to animals too.
Isn't it amazing, like a person like yourself, Jimmy, me, we treat our animals like gold. They sleep with us. We bring them everywhere. And then you have other people that drag them behind a car. I mean, how is there such a upside down thought process in the treatment of animals? We're just talking about dogs. How about circus animals, squirrels, whatever?
Cats.
Cats,
Anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what. It's we all breathe. We all should be treated with dignity. That's the way I look at it, that we breathe the same air. And it's just, everything is just gone so crazy, as we know in life, from what it was when we were growing up I won't say how many years, but many, many decades ago. It seems like respect has gone. We grew up with respect. You know what I mean? Your parents taught you respect. You respected your elders. You respected animals. You knew how far to go. You had, exactly what to do. Whereas now, there looks like to me there's no respect left. The kids don't respect a lot. People don't respect. The family unit has broken down too, which I think is part of the reason. And I go back to especially video games. I mean, when you see what these video games have, no wonder people don't respect anything else. And the TV, there's so much negativity on the TV, and you've got children watching the TV. How do they know that this is the way you're meant to act? No, this is not the way you're meant to act. You see the adults, the parents are acting like this. So why wouldn't a child act the same way they see their parents act? It's just, and I do go back to video games, because I think there's the violence, and it's so real. The video games are so real. And I've seen small children playing these games, which made me, with horror to me. And you've got little kids, blowing up people and everything. And it's just, I don't know. What do you think? How do you think it's going to be in the next 10, 20 years?
Well, I don't think it's going to be getting any better. And Mike, I know you mentioned that I'm well behaved in front of Barbara, so you will both forgive me when I say the following thing regarding this animal that did this to the dogs.
Yeah, please.
I think that he should be euthanized on live television, because there is no accountability for these sorts of actions. When I read that only $16,000, and yes, I'm saying only $16,000 has been raised to try to find this piece of garbage. Okay, if you make an example out of somebody like him, I'm not so sure the next person is going to be so willing to drag a dog on a highway and leave them for dead. Now, I'm sorry if that sounds barbaric, but to me, eye for an eye would probably make a lot more sense nowadays when you see the way people are behaving, because it's time to get back to the things that Barbara spoke about: respect, accountability for life. All right, this is just the act of a cowardly animal that left two innocent animals on the side of the road to die after dragging them. I want him euthanized on live television.
I know.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. Now the sad thing is when people get a pet and then they just dump him. Just, I've seen horror pictures of people throwing a dog out of a car and the dog running after the car because that was his owner.
Right.
And waiting, you know, and seeing a dog that's chained with a, you know, on the side of the road or anything. I mean, to have a pet is a responsibility, and they love you, and you know they look up to you, and then all of a sudden, because things become, and I know things become tough with somebody, but you take them to somewhere where they can be looked after, not just throw them out on the road.
Barbara, you bring up great points, but you know, I do hear often about people that have animals for a very long time and then things go wrong and they have to decide between taking care of themselves and taking care of the animal, and then they have no choice. That must also be a very difficult situation. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing it myself, but in some cases, I guess I could understand it. But
well, take them to a no-kill shelter.
Yeah. Well, I know my two of my dogs. They were rescue dogs because the owner had died, and we had rescue operations. You know, people here, and they'll put ads on that. You know, we have these dogs. The owner, you know, died, and we're looking for someone. And I think, and a lot of people respond to them. It's not a humane society. It's not one of the societies or anything. It's actual people that have rescue situations, and they find, you know, homes for the dogs, because you're right. I mean, it's so sad because you have a dog, especially when you're older, and then the owner passes, and the poor little dog just doesn't know what it is. It took a while to get, we had two little chihuahuas from that situation, and it took a while to kind of, you know, become part of the family because they only knew one thing. They'd grown up with one owner. So, you know, it's like a child. It's a responsibility, and they take time. It's not like, you know, they become part of you. You look after them, not just throw them away, you know.
Agreed. Well, Barbara, I finally got to meet you at the gathering after hearing so much about you through Karen, obviously. I got to say, one thing that completely blew me away is that, you know, the continued love over the years for your late husband and the respect for him. Can you tell us what the relationship was like with you over the years, with you know, the fans, and how you feel after all these years about Frank's legacy?
Well, it just makes me totally amazed that it's 36 years since he passed, and he is more popular today and more well known today than what he was 36 years ago. And that's because of the social media, Facebook, everything. I mean, every day when I look at Facebook, I see a picture of him or 2 or 3 pictures that people have posted. And when I go, I kind of went into a funk after everything happened. So I didn't really have anything to do with wrestling. I mean, I had Stan Hansen and Buck Robley and, you know, a few of these people, Tony Guerrero, and that I knew, that I kept in touch with, and especially Stan. And then Larry Matisak, he asked me to write a book. And I went, there was already somebody else writing a book about Frank, and I knew there was a lot of untruths in that book. So when Larry approached me, I said, well, I'm not a writer. But he said, all you have to do is write down your feelings, write down the truth, how it was, which is what I did. And it was very, very, very good for me to do that, because then I kind of put everything down on paper and it got it out of my head. You know, because sometimes you put things in your head and you keep things in your head. You kind of block them out. But to do that, then after that, of course, I was asked to go down to St. Louis because Herb Simmons was putting on a Bruiser Brody memorial show. And that's where I met Darla long time ago. And that was when I started going to the fan fest, to go to all the different events. And just the people, it just made me feel what it is. I found my wrestling family. It was like a family that all of a sudden it was, wow, this is great. I can talk to them. They come up and talk to me. They tell me stories that they've been and seen Frank in different parts and that. And some of the stories are just so uplifting. It was like one person came up to me in one of the fan fests and he said, I remember seeing your husband. He was I was a little boy and I saw him walking through the airport and I was so scared. And he remember I went behind my father's leg because I was scared, and he came over and he bent down and he talked to me. And I'll always remember that. And it made me realize that you cannot judge a book by its cover. So many people will go by appearances and things like that. But when you get to know people, when you see what's inside them, you realize that the appearance is how a person is inside, not how they are outside. So, and also in some of this, like the gathering, there's one boy there, Mitchell. 5 years ago at the gathering, he came up. He was just small then. And he had a thing of Frank, and he was telling me just with his dad. This year, 5 years later, he comes back up to me. He's taller than me now. And I get a photo, and I've got photos of him as he's, you know what I mean, all the different times and the different sizes. And it's the people like that just is absolutely amazing. And that's why, as I said, I started going to the fan fest and just meeting the people, and it was just exhilarating for me. It was just so nice to talk to them. And usually what I do is, I don't do a lot on Facebook. I'll put, I want to know who's going. Well, who's going to the gathering, or who's going to who's going to Vegas, who's going to Waterloo, who's going to the different places. And they'll write to me, you know what I mean? They'll say, we'll be there. So what I do is I look them up and that, because I think it's really nice. And then when they come up to me, I will say, well, hi, John, how are you doing? And I know you know what I mean? Just that I actually know their name and everything. And it's really it's really good for me too, because as we know, it hasn't been a real easy ride from the time that I first met him to, right here. But things are great. You know what I mean? I've met a lot of good people. And like I said, and the other thing that really gets me too is tattoos. I cannot believe that people just put tattoos on their body of Frank. One person has his whole back. The whole back is Frank. And it's like he's in the ring, and then he has little tattooed people on, and you can recognize some of the people on his back too, like Andre the Giant and different people like that. That he's got this whole thing. Other people have it on their legs, they have it on their arms, they have it, and it's like, you actually.
Uh-oh.
Audio cut out, Mikey?
Yeah, her audio cut out. We got a wave to her. Hold on. I thought you could hear her, Jimmy.
I cannot hear her. No.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. There she is.
Oh.
We lost you there, Barbara. You got to redo.
Your audio cut out. Your audio cut out.
Where was I?
You were with the guy with the big tattoo on his back.
You were just amazed at how many different fans have actually tattooed Frank on their bodies. You realize that Frank's legacy, as it's grown over the years, when a person puts a tattoo of a Bruiser Brody, it's almost like, I'll use a musical equivalent. It's like when someone puts a Black Sabbath or Kiss or the Beatles or something. Frank's legacy has grown to immense proportions, but that's because of his body of work when he was alive.
Right.
Well, can I ask that question though? So many times when you have this iconic figure, whether it be baseball, football, politics, music, whatever, their candle burns out fast. Obviously, this wasn't by Frank's doing, but
Right. Yeah.
do you think the Bruiser Brody legacy became more popular because of the murder? If he would have lived to 75 years old, would it have been the same?
Very good question, but that's the unknown. As he had already had plans beyond wrestling, because he knew he couldn't go out there with his body and do the physical stamina that he had and the moves that he did and last. So he knew that wrestling was probably going to come to an end at some point, exactly getting in the ring and everything. So he was already planning. We'd already got a corporation together, which was called BAM, Brody Athletic Management. And he was working with a gentleman from the San Antonio University, Texas University in San Antonio. And they were working on a skit. They were working on a skit that we bought a ring. He was going to put a ring up at the school. He's going to get all the permission from the schools. And he was going to do, this was when the DARE program, remember when the DARE program came out to warn dangers of drugs and everything? It's just when it came out, it was very big in those days, still is, I think. And go up, have it all approved by the school district and everything, and then do a skit in the wrestling ring about the dangers of youth growing up and the dangers of drug. Do you think that those kids will not listen to him? Whereas you put authority figures, we think back to when we were young, you put an authority figure in there, nobody listens to him, they tune them out. You put somebody like Frank in there, they would have listened.
Right. I agree. Tipper Gore did nothing for me, so I get it.
Right.
Yep.
So that was part of the reason. He was starting to do a few commercials. He was going to run, helping Herb and Larry get the Missouri after Sam Muchnick, starting to run little tiny shows out there in the Missouri, Illinois area. They're already starting to do that and bringing in some good people, bringing in, it was Hacksaw Higgins and, a lot of those different people. And it was working, you know what I mean? And he was such a businessman that I sometimes think that maybe he would have got into politics too in the long run. I think he had so many, you know what I mean? So many that all this was just heading up to something, bigger.
Was he planning to retire soon thereafter the tragedy? Was he planning to retire soon thereafter?
No, he would have had something to do with something. That's why I said he would have been helping, of course. And he wasn't going to be somebody that was going to get in the ring at 70 years old or something.
Right.
He was too smart to know that wrestling, he was going to get out of wrestling on top. Well, look at Stan Hansen. He still goes to Japan. He still does a lot of different things. He doesn't get in the ring, but he's still part
right.
of the wrestling. And I think Frank would have been in the same position too as what Stan is. Because
when we had Stan in, well, first, before we even get further on your husband, I do have a question on your son. When you were supposed to be on the original time before we had that whole mess up, I believe it was your son's birthday. So first of all, happy belated birthday to your son. How did the passing of your husband affect your son? And did that continually make him struggle growing up, not having that father figure?
Definitely. He would be a whole different person if his dad had been alive. There's no doubt in my mind, because he was such a smart kid, and he lost a little something along the way. I mean, he's fine, don't get me wrong or anything. He's fine, but he would have had a whole different life if his dad had still been alive. Did you grow up to lose and in such a way at 7 years old to have your father. And yeah, it did. I have to admit that. Yes, it did affect him. I think he would have been a whole different person. Not that there's any, like I said, there's nothing wrong with him. I love him dearly. He's great, but definitely it would have been, there's no doubt, definitely he would have been a different person.
As a mother, and if you could take me back, how were you able to explain to your son that someone took his father's life? What does that conversation sound like?
He was with me in Puerto Rico, so he went through it all with me.
Mm.
So he was actually with me when everything happened. He actually chose his son's coffin. He actually picked out his father's coffin, and so he shared the whole thing with me. And I know that's terrible to say at 7 years old, but he was with me because I thought, because you have to remember when I got the telephone call, I mean, with everything going on, and then suddenly getting a plane at 6 o'clock in the morning, I just grabbed my son. He was still in his jammies going to the airport, had a small bag with me, and that's how it happened. And then, of course, we were in the airport when we got to Puerto Rico, and he's standing there. And when Abby came up to me and told me, so he kind of, and the thing that gets me, though, and I think back now sometimes too, everything worked out, but when Nancy, Carlos's wife, picked me up at the airport, and she said, "We'll drop Jeff off." I mean, I never thought, because I went straight to the, you know what I mean? I went straight to the funeral. I went straight to wherever it is to identify the body. So Carlito, that's Carlos's boy, Carlito.
Carlito, yeah.
Carlito, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was out there playing basketball with a bunch of boys. My son loved basketball. So we get out of the car, he sees the kids playing basketball, and she said, to go play. He takes off and starts playing basketball. I leave him there until I get back. And it's like, how? I mean, here I am in a strange country, and I leave my son with people I don't even know. But he had a ball. You know what I mean? It was like they were all good playing basketball. They told him, make sure, Jeff's okay, but you give him a basketball back in those days and he'd be fine for hours and hours, So that was kind of, so yeah, like I said, and then like I said, with him choosing, and he picked blue because he knew that was his dad's. He knew that was his dad's favorite color, so he picked out a blue coffin. So I guess, and the thing that got me was when we went into the funeral home, and they had all the coffins. They had the little baby coffins, was it like this, where the little ones are on the top and the big ones are on the bottom. So he kind of, I could see, here's these little tiny coffins for babies and little people like him and everything. So I know it's sometimes you don't know, you just,
Barbara, how did you, I imagine, right, when you get hit with all this information, now you're flying around. When does it finally all hit you, and what do you do to keep yourself getting back into life? Or how long was that recovery?
Well, what it was, when I came back to the States, we had a couple of good friends. It was the school holidays, remember? So I had a couple of good friends, and I knew this was going to be the hard thing. They had 2 children older than Jeff, just a little bit older than Jeff. So they asked me, they had to get back to work, and they asked me, what can we do? I said, leave your kids with me. So I got back after everything happened. I had 3 kids to look after. So it kept me, you know what I mean? Keep the mind busy whenever you're going through any hardships. If you think, that's when the trouble starts, because you get overly, what is it, over emotional, you can't think. Whereas I had 3 kids, they took me here, they took me there, we went to water parks, we went here, so I didn't have time. I think I had them for like a couple of weeks, so it was a couple of weeks of the adjustment, which was good. So by that time, when they got ready to leave, I had already, you know what I mean? The big thing, I had things, and school was starting up, and this was here, and I was getting back to a little bit of work, and, so the hard time was keep the mind busy. And I always say, write a list of everything you need to do. And even if you just cross one thing off that day, you've accomplished something. So you've done something that day. You don't have to do it all. As long as that list gets crossed off every day, something gets crossed off. So I sometimes tell people that. And I also say, too, I know another thing is people don't know what to say to you. And so it makes it worse because you might be in the grocery store or something and you'll see people that you know, but you see them avoiding you and I understand that, they just don't know what to say.
Right.
So you'll see them out of the corner of your eye, and the next second you see them, and I think just go up and say sorry. That's all. There doesn't have to be much to have to say or anything, but it's just something that happens in life. Just, I'm sorry, I'm sorry what happened. Thank you. That's it.
We've had many guests on our show, and obviously there was a handful of wrestlers that were there on the tragic night that Frank was murdered. What's frustrating to me, as a human being, also as a fan of wrestling and stuff, and I'm sure it is for Mike also, many of them have beaten around the bush when asked about Frank's murder, or they've pleaded the fifth. But however, Tony Atlas has always been very outspoken about what he saw, what he went through, and how much he wanted justice delivered, and yet he was sent back to the United States and basically like, get out of here because you're going to get yourself killed if you start talking. Considering Tony's bluntness about the whole situation and from what we can tell, braveness, what does Tony Atlas mean to you regarding his outspokenness on this tragedy?
Oh my gosh, I've seen Tony a couple of times, and I just have to tell him, he just, love you, Tony, but he just keeps on and on. I know it still affects him, and he still wants me. You can go get justice. You can go do that. No, we can't do anything. It's 36 years. The way that it was done, we have to accept the fact. Might not be that we want to accept the fact, but Tony, you just need to accept the fact. There's nothing you can do or I can do, because he keeps wanting me to, you know what I mean, push it.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. It's over. Whatever. Maybe Karma's a bitch, and maybe he's who knows? I'm talking about the person that did it, because he has to live. And I don't know if you know, but Puerto Ricans have made a movie. It's about legends of Puerto Rican wrestling or something. I can't pronounce it. It's all in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's got Frank in it, and it's got a little bit of everything what happened. I can't wait to see a streaming of. I've talked to the guy that played Frank in the movie, contacted me. So I had a little talk, and he said it was done very good. You know what I mean? It wasn't, I thought when I heard about this movie that it was going to be really bad, but seemingly they did it. He told me they did it really good. They kind of had him talking to me. I don't even know if I'm in it or something like that. They got the whole thing. It's not the whole movie. It's just part of the movie. So I thought that was interesting that they did touch on that, on everything, because the legends of Puerto Rican wrestling, it's all part of, that. But and it's like, dear Tony, no, he still is still talking about it, put it like that, as you know, as you've heard it,
Barbara, can I ask you, when he was wrestling, did you guys do a lot of moving? No, not at all.
No, got a house, got a child. I was home taking care of a business at home. he was on the road. So really, when you really come down to it, we probably didn't even see each other more than about 3 months a year. If you put all the time together that we were actually together, it wasn't that long, because he'd go to Japan for 6 weeks at a time. And that was that. And then he was on the road. He'd come home sometimes on a Friday. He would work Paul Bosch's territory at Houston. And he'd call me up because it was a late night, a 12 o'clock flight that left Houston for San Antonio. And sometimes he'd call me up and say, get some food on. I'm bringing Stan home.
That's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. Barbara, I don't know if he ever told you anything behind the scenes, and you may have answered this question. Like I said, I'm no expert, trust me. And if I got an IQ of 70, that's impressive. But
oh boy,
I'm a big Von Erich guy. I've always have been WWE guy, Von Erich guy. Frank did make a legacy down in Texas. He was incredible down there. But this kind of question, again, I don't know if you know it and whatever, but when David Von Erich passed in Japan, there's a story that he passed from the intestinal thing, and then there's a story that there were drugs and Frank wanted to keep his legacy and threw the drugs away. Did Frank ever share that story with you?
No, I know he was the one that found him. So no, he didn't share if there was anything attached to it. No. So, but yeah, I know it shocked him, because I was visiting overseas at the time, and he called me, and he never called me when he was in Japan because the fact it was too expensive. Frank was very frugal, and those were the days before we had internet, before we had all these phone things. So if you made a phone call, it was a fortune. So when he made the phone call, and I was overseas too, I knew something was wrong, and he was just devastated. Because, like I said, they were waiting for, as you know, they were waiting for David on the bus. And when he didn't show up, they sent Frank up to the room to see what was wrong. And, of course, David had passed. He was in bed and just probably passed in his sleep, because he was already sick, if I remember, before he even went to Japan. And we know that international travel is, if you're not feeling the best, is really bad. So whatever it was, I think it was a total accident. He didn't, he wasn't meant to die. It's just a total accident.
Barbara, I know it's not an easy question to ask, so forgive me, but is it possible that you can share the call that you received when you found out about your husband's passing? Who called you, and how did that go down?
Oh, well, I had talked to Frank that afternoon, and we'd set up a meeting I was doing something for him, and we were going to talk on Monday afternoon. So the phone started ringing about 12 o'clock. We said, do not answer the phone. We've talked. We didn't have an answer machine either. There was no answering machine. So we made a pact. Don't answer the phone, if it's not for us. You know what I mean? We didn't know. I talked to him, so I knew it wasn't him. And, well, let's face it. If you're in the public eye, you have all these women that try to cause trouble, that make phone calls and this and that. I don't have to go on. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the phone started ringing. It started ringing at midnight. Woke me up. Okay. I'm not answering the phone. It went on, hang up, call back. In fact, when things really get you, I'm getting mad now. So I pick up the phone, and of course it's a woman on the phone. What the hell? Oh, I just wanted to call and tell you that there has been an accident. Oh yeah, right. Haha. I mean, this is my thing. You should really come to Puerto Rico. Oh yeah, I get on a plane and come to Puerto Rico, I will really be in trouble. I'll call you back. I said, I called, I knew the hotel he was staying at, so I called the hotel, and they put me through to Dutch Mantell. Well, Dutch did tell me, didn't say exactly what had happened, but he did say there was an accident. So me, being me, I knew he did not like hospitals or anything like that. I said, well, perhaps I better go. There's Dutch. said, perhaps I better go. And if it's me, he's going to want his son with him. If he has to stay in hospital for any length of time, maybe I'll go down and make sure that he's okay. And you know what I mean? Well, and then I called my neighbor up. And I mean, this is now, by this time, it's like 2:00 in the morning. And I called the airport because I used to do all the bookings for Frank. So, you know what I mean? It wasn't anything to call to make a reservation. So I called, I made a reservation. I didn't have any money. I was looking, Frank had credit cards he'd never used. Thank goodness I found them. I thought, where would he hide it? Where would a man hide something like that? And for some reason I found it. And, you know, I'd been finding Jeff's things, you know. I thought, okay. So I had a credit card that I thought, boy, when I get to the airport and I have to pay this, I hope they take it because it's not in my name and I don't have the cash. And I got to the airport and it was when Braniff, if you remember, we had an airline here called Braniff a long time ago that went out of business. And the guy at the Braniff counter was somebody that knew Frank. Oh, so I told him what had happened. He took the credit card and gave me, you know, round trip and everything, because I didn't know exactly how long I was going to be. Had Jeff, dressed Jeff up. He's still in his jammies. Dressed Jeff up, got on the plane. It went from San Antonio, I think, to Orlando to Puerto Rico, if I remembered. I called the lady from Orlando and told her I'm coming in. Now I know that I talked to her after that, so I knew it was Carlos Colon's wife, and she could talk. She was Canadian, so we had something in common. And I called her, and she said she would pick me up at the airport, and that's kind of how it happened. And then I told you when I got to the airport and then Abby was the one leaving, and he was the one that came up and told me that he had already passed. And of course, then I don't know. Then, like I said, going back on that story with leaving Jeff and that, you just go into shock. You just kind of go into, you know, that, I don't know, whatever it is, knowing things have got to get done. You're in a strange country, and you just, I don't know, just go into shock, I guess. You name it, you know. But I've got everything done. I also knew I had to stay in Puerto Rico a lot longer, too, because I know I couldn't go home without a death certificate. Otherwise, I couldn't do anything. So I had to wait around a little longer, which was, you know, to pick up the death certificates. And then I took them home because I wasn't going to get into this mess of bringing a body back to the States. So I had him cremated over there, and I brought him home with me on the plane. So, you know, then I had a little service with all his, you know, the friends and family and that when I got back to San Antonio.
You just seem very calm, like you just really were able to compartmentalize everything that you were doing there.
I know. I guess because I've lived in 3 different countries and I've had to, you know what I mean? I've kind of, I think, strange story. I don't know if I told you this. I think I believed in fate and believe you just have to get, because I think I told you that I should have been in 1968, I should have been on a little inter-island ferry that sunk. And because of an accident with my girlfriend we were getting ready to come over to Australia, and they had an inter-island ferry between the 2 islands. And she was having her 21st birthday party on the Saturday. We had booked on the Tuesday to go up in the ferry, go across, and then get in another boat, a liner, and go across to Sydney. But while at her party, she's cutting the cake and the whole table collapses on her foot. So we end up in the emergency room, and she ends up with plaster up to her knee. So against everybody's saying, no, you don't need to spend any extra money, you can manage. She's on crutches, and this is an inter-island ferry with steps and everything. So we changed our booking, and we flew up, and we were in Wellington the night, and we were getting the boat the next day. We were coming over across on the boat and then picking up the other boat. Well, a cyclone, they call them cyclones over in that part of the country, hit. And the boat we were on went on a sandbar. They didn't think anything was going to happen, and it turned over.
Wow.
And what happened was, with being a ferry between the two islands, it was full of cars underneath. People drive their cars on it. Oh. So when it was so rough, living through hurricanes, Jimmy, as you know, living through hurricanes, the water, it shifted all the cars and it just turned over. Well, a lot of people didn't survive. And her, with her plaster on her leg, probably, and who knows, I might not have either. You just don't know. So I think at that moment I believed in fate, and we never know where fate is going to take us. So we kind of have to be ready for anything. We don't like it because we like to have our nice, safe lives and everything like that. But I've always say you gotta give thanks each night before you go to sleep. You gotta give thanks. I had a good day, because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and so I'm going to be ready for whatever tomorrow is going to bring.
Well said. Well said. You know, Frank's passing, legend and honored in America, obviously, after his passing. Legend and honored in Puerto Rico, obviously, after his passing. Can you tell us about how it was, the scene when you were when you went to Japan? How was the feeling to go to Japan? I mean, this man's legend was just worldwide. How was your feeling to go to Japan and see how many people loved your husband over there in Japan?
That was something I am so glad I did. I took Jeff with me. I am so glad that we did that. And of course, Stan was with us too. So we had, Stan with us. And because Frank would always say, Barbara, you never know what it's like over there. It's like a whole different world. Well, they just gave me the absolute incredible treatment. I mean, we even got to go up to Osaka on the bullet train. And as I said, and the ceremony that they gave Frank was just, that was just what wonderful respect. And just standing up in that ring while he was being given the 10 bell count and everybody was chanting and we're standing there. And then because before that, everybody comes in and they put flowers, and it was just, it's hard for me to even describe it. It was just so incredible. And I'm so glad I got to share that, just because of the fact that I never would have known what it was like over there. So I'm very grateful. And I'm still dealing with the Japanese because they're still doing merchandise off him. In fact, just today I was in contact with some people over there that are doing merchandise of Frank. So he's still very big over there too, 36 years later.
Legend.
I know. It's, as I said, it's just unbelievable. But just the way that, as I said, this long after, and still so many people,
Barb, I got to ask you though, right? Because I'm thinking about how I would be. Now, clearly, I think I've got a beat on the type of person you are. But how do you not blame certain people, or at least say get angry? Like, for example, like a Dutch Mantel, not blaming him for the murder, obviously, but he continued to work in Puerto Rico after this happened. Do you look back and get angry, or is it just live and let live?
You just have to live and let live, because anger is very destructive on people. It's like you can't live life. I go through times that, somebody did this and didn't even pay for it. There's no way not to have certain feelings. My worst feelings come round about the anniversary of his death, because in 1 month he has his birthday, we have a wedding anniversary, and we have, his passing. So all these things, and I have to keep busy, because it doesn't matter how many years later, dates are still very, very important. Whether it's a parent that's passed, there's certain dates that stay in our mind forever. And those dates are some of the dates that do. But it's like I said, you can't, this is 36 years later. I could be a mess. I know people that have never got over some of the things that have happened to them. And they have missed out on so much. There's still a lot left. There's still, experience to have, like even going to all the wrestling fan fests and things like that. And you can't stay angry. And stress, I think, is one of the worst. I could be a little old gray-haired lady if I'd let myself get stressed out.
Right.
Instead of, and believe me, you're right. It doesn't mean I don't think. But I do it when those moments happen. I let them come and go. I don't hold them in and say, I go with the flow. Like an anger time, I'll go, oh, shh. And then it's over. Because if you keep things bottled up inside, that's when they can explode, and who knows what can happen. And that's with anything in life.
Yep.
Get it out, talk it out,
What was the moment that you knew everything was going to be okay?
Well, that's a good question too. Everything was going to be okay, but it was never going to be the same. It can't. You have, like I said before, I know I might be repeating myself. I had to accept it. I had to accept the cold, hard reality that I was alone, and I had to raise my 7-year-old son, and I had to be strong for him. And that's probably what helped too, having a young child, because I had to be strong to get through, to get him raised. So yeah, it's a tough one. Don't get me wrong. It's tough, but like I said, you gotta release, and when times get just say release. Do some deep breathing. Some nice deep breathing is sometimes really good too. Because I do yoga, I do Tai Chi, I do these things that are really healthy too, and to bring out the chi, bring the chi in,
So you were determined to find some sort of peace with it to carry on.
That's all you can do.
Right.
Because it's not right. It wasn't right.
Nope.
But there was nothing. I had to come to the fact that I couldn't do anything about it. Maddie with Tony said, you got to go down there. No, this wasn't the place to do. I could not put myself or my son in danger or anything too. That's just some things you just have to let be. You might not want to, but you have to let it go,
What is your favorite memory of you and Frank together?
Well, I think one of the best ones. This is funny. It was when I met him, because as I said, I worked in, and I'd known him for quite some time, and I had made a friend. See, I worked in a hotel, and all the wrestlers used to stay at the hotel. So I was like a big sister to all the guys, because their wives would send them letters. They would show me pictures of their children. Remember, we didn't have phones or cameras or anything back in those days. It was mail. You wrote and mailed letters. And when they were overseas, their wives would mail a letter to the hotel. I'd go down, I'd give them their mail, and they would tell me about their kids and their wives. And of course they were missing because they're in a whole new country. And so I became really good friends with Killer Carl Kropp, who's also passed. And Frank, of course, came in, and he was there for about 3 months, and, of course, just talking and that. Well, this one night, I got talked into work until 11 o'clock. I usually work the early shift, but somebody didn't show up, so I got talked into working the late shift. So just as I'm leaving, all the boys are coming back from the matches. I mean, you're talking, there was Andre the Giant, and there was Don Morocco, Rick Martel. I mean, they're all the ones that were over there that I got to meet. And I was just getting ready to leave, and Kyle came up and said, look, we're going up to the Bourbon and Beef. My boss also owned, was an American gentleman that owned the hotel, and he also had a piano bar up the street. So I went, well, it's 11 o'clock. I said, no, we're all here. Just come up and have a drink with us. So I went up, had a drink. All of a sudden, one by one, they started to leave. I thought, well, this is a little strange. Didn't really think too much of it. And then all of a sudden, there was 3 of us. There was me, Carl, and Frank. Well, I found out later he had set me up because he didn't know how to get me by myself. So he got all the boys to come in on this little act and say, look, she won't come up. If I ask her, she won't come up. But if we all go up, she'll feel safe in the group. But then you all got to leave. So he was a good worker.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Good booking. Good booking by Frank. There you go.
So, and another one favorite memory was just before it happened. We went to Six Flags over Texas, and they have this ride, Hurricane or White Water or something, where everybody sits in one of those, what do you call those little trolley things?
Right.
Well, you like you know what I mean, where you've got about 12 people sitting, and it would go up. It was like a high thing with water, and you'd go up, 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 up to the top. I didn't go. I let his son and dad, dad and son. That's a good time to have together. So he went up. I'm standing down. And see what it is, it went up, and then it came down, and it caused a tidal wave. I think it was a tidal wave or something. So you got up there, you got the thrill of coming down in the water, and then as you left the ride, you could stand on the bridge, then you'd get wet as the next ride came down. One of these crazy rides. Well, I don't know if many people knew, but Frank was afraid of heights. You wouldn't think that with all his jumping of cages and things. Well, the thing broke down. Oh. I'm standing down the bottom, and this is in Texas. He's with his son, and this is high. He's with his son. Most of the people that was riding with him, of course, knew him because of Texas. He was very well known in Texas. So here he is trying to be so cool, being so not afraid because all these people know him and he's got his son next to him. Finally, and the next second I see people crawling up, going way, way up top of it. I mean, it had to be 10, 15 minutes they got stuck up there. And then finally it goes down. He was white when he came off. So, but it was one memory that his son half remembers because he was so young.
Right.
And, it was a father-son, and this was in the school holidays just before he went to Puerto Rico.
I really, it's hard for me to imagine what your son had to go through knowing that he didn't have his father, and having those memories and then having all these people in awe of what his father had accomplished. Jimmy had mentioned earlier, we've had so many guys in, and people love to hear about your husband. But in some cases, some of the wrestlers would claim that your husband was a bit of a bully in the industry. What are your thoughts about those comments?
No, if they would only have listened to him, they would have been over. But a lot of times, especially if they're a little more green, they would get in the ring and try take control. Well, you didn't do that with Frank. You did not take control of the match. Then that's when he would, I'm sure you've all heard of the famous cage match with Lex.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing. I saw Lex. Where did I see Lex? Well, it wasn't that long. Wherever it was, I just saw him this year too.
You must have seen him at the gathering. Was you at the gathering, right?
The Vegas.
Oh,
he was in Vegas because Sting was being presented at Vegas, and he was with Sting. He kind of did the presentation for Sting, so I got to see Sting and Lex. He was nice. He said complimentary things about my husband. So you know what I mean. Whatever it was just he was new in the business, And I've talked to other people that have come, and he said, he took care of me. I have a lot of these people that say that he kind of mentored. Hacksaw Higgins, he's always talked to me. That was why he carries the 2x4, was because of Frank. Frank got him, told him, whatever you see around, like I do, if you find something there, just pick it up and go in the ring. Picked up a 2x4, and he's still got the 2x4, And John Nord, the barbarian, what was his, the bazooka, whatever. I know he's got two names. He had two names. Berserker. Yeah. Right. He has been so complimentary. Even Greg Gagne would tell me about things when he got in the ring. He said, "Why am I doing in the ring with this huge guy?"
Get me out of here.
Yeah. But he said the way it was, the match was good, but they both got little parts. So if you listened, because Frank knew how to get over. Well, that's obvious now today. Yeah. He knew how to get over.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew to get over, he can't just beat people up. He has to give them high spots. Otherwise, it's not even a match.
Barbara.
So yes, I know he had that. I know he did have that reputation, but that was because the people would get in and try to take over the match. Well,
bad idea.
Bad idea.
Very bad idea.
Early in Frank's career, he came up Northeast and wrestled against San Martino, right, in the WWF. How close was he coming back to Vince Jr.'s WWE? Was that ever something that was discussed? Did Vince ever call the house and say, "Bruiser, come on up, or I'm going to get Nord the Barbarian to play your role"?
No, he knew. No, it would have been in the works, because Japan, what is it? The Warriors?
Road Warriors?
Yeah. They were just getting ready. They were just starting off in Japan, and they were going to be the next best thing, because Stan and Frank were starting to get old over there. So the Road Warriors were coming in. So he knew it was just a matter of time. It would have been a while, but there still would have been a matter of time that it would have been less. So and I'm sure you guys too, he knew the match that everybody wanted to see was him and Hulk Hogan.
Oh my God, Brody Hogan would have been. Oh, what a fantasy! Oh my God, Mike, we would have eaten that up.
Could you imagine that WrestleMania main event?
My
God.
To this day, I still wish that. Oh my God, that would have been unbelievable.
So he knew that was the match. That was what he was saving to come back to New York, because he knew everybody. There was so much talk, Beauty and the Beast, So, yeah, I do feel he would have been back in New York, because he had quite a good relationship with Vince Senior, because I remember Vince Senior used to call the house, and I remember taking the phone call and, asking who it is. Like I said, these are the days before cell phones and answering machines and everything.
I'm sorry, Barbara. Do you know whether or not Hogan was willing, as the rumors were going around, do you know whether or not Hogan was willing to even get in the ring with Frank?
Yeah, well, Frank knew he'd probably have to put him over.
Of course, yeah, of course. But I'm just curious if Hogan was like, "No way, brother, he hits too hard, dude."
I don't think so, because he knew it would have been a big payoff.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
I mean, let's face it, you got a payoff. You can get anything done, as we found out last week with the boxing match.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that what that was? It didn't look like a boxing match, but go ahead.
You believe in wrestling?
Yeah. Work.
Barbara, how did it feel to see your husband portrayed in the Iron Claw, the Von Erich movie? Was that a exciting deal for you?
It was, but they got a little guy.
Listen, wait a minute. I told this to Jimmy. Their lead guy was a small guy. You cannot put a bunch of giants around them. You gotta keep everybody the size of Efron, man. I mean, come on.
I know.
Did you see Ric Flair in that movie, Barbara?
Oh, wasn't that bad?
That was awful.
Man,
Thank you.
Mean, man.
That was horrible, Mike. Horrible.
That was such a bad. And the thing is, too.
Terrible.
I mean,
terrible.
Stack was more like Kerry. The main playing Kevin, he was much more like Carrie.
Right.
With the muscles.
I agree. 1,000%.
The other one was more like kind of Kevin. It was like I thought some of the
where would you be able to find a guy with the body like Kerry Von Erich? I mean, the guy was Schwarzenegger, man. Come on.
There's got to be somebody out there that looks like that. Come on.
All right, now, Barbara, I got to ask you, Barbara. When your husband was down in Texas, there was no point you're like, "Hey, Frank, I want to come down and I want to meet Kerry."
No.
No. I know Karen.
I guess what it is, I've never been starstruck. I think that's probably why he noticed that. I've never been, like I said, as a book by its cover, you get to know people here. It's not for what they do or who they are or what they are. It's how they react to you. So, no, I guess that's just something I've never been. Meeting, especially meeting all these people and that, is like, they're just people. They're just, they treat me nice. I like them. Like you,
I can tell you for sure that Karen, when she was, when Wahoo was down there and stuff, when Kerry wrestled, Karen was up in the front row.
Well, listen, I can't blame her.
I don't either.
Let me ask you this, Barbara. Dark Side of the Ring, right? It's I get a lot of from the wrestlers will tell me privately when they get interviewed by him, they kind of get snuck around, like they do a lot of really good cutting to make them look as bad as possible. I mean, how was your experience with the people from Dark Side of the Ring? Were you unhappy with some of the cuts, or was everything okay?
I'll tell you what, I loved both of them, Jason and Evan. They treated me so nice. They treated Jeff so nice. I actually got Jeff to go on and speak, which he's never, ever done. And what it was, that was, as you know, the pilot. So the pilot, it's still going on today. This is what started their whole seasons and their years of doing this whole Dark Side of the Ring and the other ones that have come on afterwards. And they always, stay in touch with me and everything like that, because it was because of Frank kind of made their career, because that was the episode.
Barbara, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry, but our own Jimmy Pharaoh was featured on the Marty Jannetty episode, which is the highest rated episode on Dark Side of the Ring, due to Jimmy Pharaoh, mind you.
Would you stop it?
Just throwing that out there.
Just stop it. Oh, my Lord. This is true, though. These are facts. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, my God.
I met him in Vegas, too. He's a character. Marty, Jerry. Oh my gosh.
No doubt.
I couldn't believe some of the things he was saying.
At least it wasn't some of the things he was showing. Let's not get into this.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
No,
there you go.
No, they did. They were very, very respectful on Dark Side of the Ring. They were really, I was part of it the whole way. They let me in on the different things and who they were having on and everything like that. So I can't say anything but nice things about that. And I'm so glad it was successful, and I'm glad that they made a career out of all this Dark Side of the Ring. That Vice loved it that much after that first episode and re-upped every year.
Right.
Here's probably the hardest question of the night, Barbara. And again, thank you so much. Do you forgive Invader for what happened?
I think it was unfair. No, I think in my way down. No, I think it was unfair that he took a life and didn't get punished for it. I can't say anything else, I know to forgive. I know, he may want that now because I know he's getting old and he's, getting different, and he may have talked to other people, but no, right now, So, no.
If I can switch gears just a little bit and possibly lighten the mood, if it wasn't for the Monte and the Pharaoh show, I never would have gotten the chance to meet and eventually marry Karen McDaniel. So since through this show, meeting and marrying Karen McDaniel, I finally got to meet you. So I wanted to know, how did you and Karen become friends in the first place? And was it like a common bond? Because by the time from what I understand, by the time you do meet Karen, Wahoo, of course, has passed away.
Right.
We know what happened with Frank. Was there like just an instant connection between the two
Oh,
of you?
instant connection. It was, yeah, what it was at the gathering too.
Okay.
I mean, I knew Karen and that, but I'd never met her or
Mm-hmm.
anything. And as soon I got to the gathering and we're talking, and the first question she asked me was about the Hall of Fame. And if you know that Wahoo and Frank, we did not know there was any awards or anything. They went into the Legends Hall of Fame, which is nothing. I didn't know, and I was telling her, same as Karen, she was mad too, that we didn't get any payment for it. We didn't get anything. They kind of shafted both of them, and I didn't even know that he was going in. I saw it listed somewhere, I think probably Facebook or something. Congratulations, Frank, you're going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I said, no, he's not. They've got something wrong. Well, it was that night he went in, but it wasn't the big Hall of Fame. It was just this little Legends Hall of Fame. Well, Karen went through the same thing as me. So it was like, boom, we both totally, at that one moment, it was like, sisterhood.
Right. Not even a phone call. Not
Not a phone
invited.
call, no invitation, no
Pathetic.
money, no nothing. Just
Pathetic.
boom. We got shafted, both of us.
That's
Karen and me.
pathetic. Yeah.
How was that Power Town doll deal going? Was that a decent deal?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, Karen hasn't yet, but she's got Wahoo this time. Oh yeah.
There it is.
Wow. Look at that packaging.
Bad boy. I got to tell you, this is a top-notch doll, man.
Look at that packaging.
God. I
Wow.
know. And then coming if I can get it.
There you go.
Wow, look at that. Wow.
All the way up. Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, do you have one of those yet?
I do. I've got Stan Hansen, Bruiser.
Yeah. Packaging.
I ordered the Wahoo McDaniel.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm.
Oh, I think Karen will be very happy. I was very happy with. Took a long time to get the payment from it, but
Really?
That Gagne.
You beat me to it. Damn it, Greg. Pay up. What are you doing?
Look at Gagne stealing all the cash. That guy.
Oh man.
But
rough.
But no, it was as I said, no, it was good. And like I said, it's the most incredible figure he's ever had out. So my goodness. It was.
Mike, I think the Wahoo figure is supposed to be released around Christmas time if you're waiting for it. I think.
No, so they're delayed.
They're delayed.
They actually sent a free, like you had a choice of a free doll, right? Because they're delayed on all the dolls.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Which one did you get for the free?
What, the Red Rooster?
I wanted to, I forget which one I wanted to order, Barbara, but it was sold out. So all they had left. So for the free doll, you had one choice. And
Mario Mancini?
No, it was Vern Gagne. So I took
it. Does it come with a comb?
Dude, there might be a comb in there. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. Listen, I'm not a doll collector. I'm just not, right? But Gagne sent me that Kerry Von Erich one. So I got into the collection a little bit. All right, that's cool. He sent me that one. And then, I got the Bruiser and the Stan. And I got to tell you, we had Stan Hansen on a couple of months ago, and you could tell still to this day how much he still respects and loves Frank. Because I asked him a question about Frank, and he instantly is like, I'm not talking bad about Frank. I'm like, dude, I'm not asking you to talk bad about Frank. I'm asking a question about Frank. Relax. Take it easy. Because, everybody thinks everybody's looking for dirt, right? There's no dirt to be found anymore, right? It's just, your husband was an iconic figure in the sport. Yeah. And I got to tell you, Barbara, I only met you 3 weeks ago on the internet. But like I said, I've kind of got a beat on you, and I got to give you a lot of credit. You're a pretty impressive human being. I mean, after all you and your family have endured, And for you to be the way that you are, it just proves that there's so many great people on this planet that you can learn from. Because you could have been an angry, upset, never forgiving person, and the way you portray yourself, it's like we all should try to achieve to be Barbara Goodish, to be honest with you.
Amen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
All right, Jimmy, Pharaoh's final question, and we can let Barbara go out on a Friday night with not being tired from a long interview. So, Barbara, this is called the Pharaoh's final question. It's unscripted. Jimmy Pharaoh pulls it out of his intelligent brain out there. It could be anything from what kind of hot dogs do you like to do you like the color green? I have no idea. Jimmy, it's all you, baby.
How would you like the world to remember Frank as a family man? Because that doesn't get talked enough about. What was Frank like as a family man?
A family man. You showed a couple of the pictures of him as a family man. He came home, and what it was. Yeah, this is hard. Yeah, he'd come home, and one of the funniest stories. There you got me started. One of the funniest stories was his son took him to show and tell at school one day. And here's Frank with his son coming in, sitting on a little chair for the show and tell, because all the teachers just kind of with that. But he was a family man. When he was at home, when he left, he was Bruiser Brody. But when he came home, he was Frank Goodish, husband and father. And he'd go, if he could, to Jeff's Little League games. And then if you see some of the photos, he's on the floor playing with him and playing. And their favorite game was He-Man and Skeletor. That was a kid's game back in those days. They loved Castle Grayskull. I mean, they played. Jeff was He-Man and Dad was Skeletor. And they'd get down on the floor and bring out all the different figures and things like that with the castle. And here's Frank, big bad Bruiser Brody, on the floor playing He-Man and Skeletor. So I could go on, but that's, as I said, and like I said, taking his son to Six Flags that time, knowing he didn't like really going out in public because he was so well known, especially in Texas. But he was home just before it happened and wanted to take his son to Six Flags. So, yeah, he was a very, very good father. There's that one picture that you've seen just after Jeff was born, and you can see the look on Frank's face as he's looking down on the baby, on Jeff. That just look that he had on his face, and yeah, that one. I mean, just that simplifies everything of him. It was just, I think, one of the happiest moments when his son was born.
The gentle giant in the house.
What do they say, though? For every great man lies a great woman, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I want to remind everybody, this is Monte and the Pharaoh, Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. You can catch Monte and the Pharaoh on the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube page, the Monte and Pharaoh Facebook page. Catch us on Twitch TV. We just announced that we are going to be on Stripe TV very shortly, where you can catch all Monte and the Pharaoh episodes. You can hear us on all audio channels. And if you're lucky enough to live in New York, you'll be able to catch Monte and the Pharaoh on New York Cable on channel 115 and channel 20 on Thursday and Friday at midnight, 1:30 a.m. and at 11:30 p.m., where you will be able to catch Miss Barbara Goodish on this reduced episode as we cut it up a little bit.
It's abbreviated. I can't believe I'm still correcting you after all these years.
Barbara, since Jimmy moved to Florida, I don't have that great. He used to make these great cable versions, him and Bart, and now I got to do it, and it's not. It's so
I got to do it.
It's like my production here. It's awful. But it's still better than 3 weeks ago, and that's really what matters.
This is true.
I want to remind everybody I'm back in studio tomorrow with Jimmy, which will still be in Florida, but we have the return of Big Ron Shaw, and Ron's got a lot to share from the Donald Trump becoming president, to Mario Mancini and beyond. He's got a lot to say. So we're looking forward to Ron's third return. And, hopefully Jimmy doesn't piss him off. Barbara, he pissed Ron off on the first episode, and Ron actually walked off the show due to Jimmy. But
no, that's a complete lie, first of all. He was always friendly with me. As a matter of fact, I had to make a phone call on my partner's behalf to get Ron to forgive his ass. So you quit embellishing nonsense, Michael. That's a lie.
You will be blamed for everything until I'm dead. That's just the way it works.
What have you talked to my mother lately? What's going on here? What is this? Unbelievable.
Very funny. Jimmy, you want to send us out, Big Guy? Barbara, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh with the great Barbara Goodish. And until next week with Big Ron Shaw, later.